My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union. We're in the studio right now, and we're getting ready to do the public access video in Cincinnati. At the same time, we're streaming this live on Facebook, and we're streaming it on my YouTube channel. We're going to be next week getting it on better. Okay, so we're testing out the various light right now. Okay, and various light combinations. Apparently, I don't do good in the dark. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna start. We're gonna keep the light on the start.
Oh, we're gonna keep the light on me. Okay, I'm shining in the light
Yeah,
now.
but you wasn't the first person that we had to keep them on with all the other videos.
Okay, all right. Lisa, thanks. Okay, I appreciate you watching. Okay, we're going to be going live. I'm going to be quiet for a second as soon as I get direction from Misdirection. Okay, she is going to tell me to be quiet for a second when we're getting ready to roll, but she just keep popping back and forth for the light. Okay.
I'm trying to get you right.
All right. So if anybody wants more information about us, you can always go to friendsoftheafricanunion.com. We are a civil society in the African Union and in the United Nations. We are a blended pairing of a nonprofit organization and a for profit community benefit organization incorporated out of New York. Uh,
Right. Come on, here we go.
Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet for about a minute, and then I'm going to speak, and we're going to get underway. Thank you much. Hello, I'm Herschel Daniels. My name is Herschel Daniels, right? The name of the organization is Friends of the African Union. Friends of the African Union is a civil society organization in the United Nations and through a joint venture with New Future Foundation since 2014, and we are since 2013, since October of 2013, we are a member of the African Union's civil society here in America. When we met with the African Union, when they called us the task to review their 50-year unification plan called Africa 2063. But what I'm going to talk to you today about is where we just came back. And you may see this little button here that NCRC. What that is because I'm a member of the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. And on April 9th through the 11th, we had our conference in Washington, D.C. It's the biggest conference that we've had. We had over 1,000 members come, okay, from over 600 organizations on April 9th through the 11th at the Washington Hilton Hotel. And the theme of our conference was the Just Economy Conference of 2018. Now, this is important, okay? See, we've had an economy that's been growing. Okay, we are here in America. If you're part of the 1%, okay, this has been a great time. If you're part of the 10%, this has been a great time. Now, if you're not part of that, okay, then you may have been doing okay relative to where you were in 2008. Okay, when we were in a deep recession, the Great Recession. Okay, and you're saying compared to when that was, I'm doing great. But the problem is that those who are not doing great are the part of the forgotten. Okay, they're not part of our economy. Monday, just to give you an example, when the Supreme Court allowed gambling for college sports and others. Okay, uh, they estimate that's $150 billion of underground economy. Okay, and according to the Department of Labor, relative to job creation. $1 billion equals 25,000 jobs. Okay. So what you're talking about is that we have millions of Americans who are operating in an underground economy, uh, not necessarily because they want to, but that's how they need to survive. Okay. An just economy is an economy that deals with what everybody needs to have. Okay. To survive. Now, remember how America was founded. Okay, America was founded on a principle that a European principle that said the right of the Christian European monarchs who could grant a charter, and if you were not a Christian European kingdom who believe in salvation through Jesus Christ, then that charter allowed that explorer to take your land. Hence, Asia, Africa, and the Americas lands were taken by these charters, by these explorers. Okay, so here in America, when the charter was granted, by Spain, Portugal, England, principally, and they came here to North America, they were at the age of discovery, are able to take the lands of the indigenous people who were here. And so, notwithstanding the whole idea of Locke and the whole idea of you're entitled to your life under this basic principle of the creation of the United States, Europeans took this land. And when they took this land, that was the number one foundation of America, is that they were able to take this land. And then the second foundation in America was that they could enslave other human beings. Okay. And so now you have free land and you have free labor. And then all else comes into being because now you have a crucible that the European nations did not have, which is freedom of religious wars. So you have to understand that Europe had coming out of this Papa Bull, okay, from the Roman Catholic Church, had fought, okay, over 1,000 years of wars, okay, from the Council of Nicosia on through 1500. There was literally 1,000 years worth of wars in Europe, and they were religious wars. It was religious wars in between Christendom, and then in dealing with the so-called pagans, and then it was the war that was originally lost against Islam, from 700 on. Look, I've lived in Europe. Okay, I've lived in Spain. I've lived in Italy and Sicily, and for hundreds of years, Europe, parts of Europe were ruled, okay, by the Moors. Okay, and so in facing this, and then what they call the 100-Year War of Freedom against the Moors. Okay, that Christendom issued these Papa Bulls, and this famous one that allowed Christian monarchs and their explorers, their armed armadas, okay, to attack Africa, all right, and to defeat Islamic nations, pagan nations. And the curious thing, the surviving Christian nation of Ethiopia, okay, because remember, Christianity is a African religion, okay. Jews came out of where? Africa. Okay, whereas Israel in the Middle East, it was part of Africa, until the modern age. Okay. And so that Christendom came out of Africa. And, look, I've been in the Sistine Chapel, and it's beautiful paintings and et cetera, but, it's the whole story. The conqueror gets to write the story. Okay. Because Jesus the Christ didn't have any blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay. That's just mythology. Okay. Like a lot. But in reality, when Africa was fought and conquered by 1895, you have to remember that Africa was not defeated immediately. It took hundreds of years for Africa to be defeated. Meanwhile, you have this trading of slavery going on during that period where at least 700,000 slaves were brought here to the United States. And remember how slavery grew in the United States. Okay, it grew in the United States where slaves became more valuable rather than just importing slaves and men and wearing them out and they're dying. It became more valuable to import African women, rape them, or breed them. Okay, remember slavery in America was based on eugenics movement. Okay, of breeding. Okay, and the breeding was carried out either by the master raping, the African woman and then enslaving his children. Okay, or the breeding of African woman and an African man, and then raising their child, and by the age of 4 or 5, that child was in doing some free labor around this. Remember, in the antebellum South, we as African descended people, or in that case, Africans, outnumbered Europeans, and so there was a system that was put in place here in America that carries out to this day, and why we have problems in this day, and why our economy is not just. Okay. Uh, because of how it grew out of those two issues. One, land that was taken, and again, the Supreme Court in the McIntosh case embedded that in the fundamental pillars of American justice. In other words, if you take away the whole issue of taking indigenous people's lands, then you lose the whole of the United States. So that's not going to happen. And then the second part is the enslavement of Africans, okay, and that history that accumulates in 1868, 150 years ago, because remember, we were coming in to the end of the war, right? And war was over with, but now you had these millions of Africans, Mexicans, Europeans, all of these who were not American citizens. Okay, so in 1868, what we did in the United States of America is that they passed the 14th Amendment that said all of you are American citizens. Dr. Lassiter is on the line, and she could tell you about that and about the history of 150 years ago on July 28, 1868, when all of these people, okay, not just the Africans, became American citizens. Okay, because remember, America at that time, we had taken California from Mexico, New Mexico from Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, okay, Texas. These were all lands that were owned by the government of Mexico that, through one way or another, through wars, that had become part of the United States. And so we certified on that by a constitutional amendment, the 14th, on July 28, 1868, that all shall become American citizens. and that now that was a change. Now remember, now when you had that change, there was a crucial thing. It still was an unequal economy, okay, because we didn't have access to capital. Now, we may have been then Americans, but we couldn't get access to capital. Remember I was telling you that the Native American lands, okay, because the United States hadn't finished its growth in the lands, and the sovereign nations of the indigenous people did not sign treaties ending their war with the United States in 1865. Okay, it was until the 1870s that most of these wars were over with. Okay, and by the way, they kept us as slaves also. Okay, uh, and it's one of the great untold stories of our Native American brothers and sisters, and who were African Native American descendant. Okay, and their denial of the rights of the full indigenous people status. That, fortunately, in the past year, that is being more addressed, and I'll tell you about that segment when, if you watch the segment on the United Nations Indigenous Peoples Forum, which we've participated in since 2016. But I digress. Okay, when I'm talking about an unjust economy, how do we make an unjust economy just? Okay, so we had this conference that we've been part of, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, since 2000. I've been a member of that organization. I'm young in it. The founding group, okay, is 27 years together. Okay, but what was important about this past year was to come to the realization that the new financial tools since 2016 that NCRC's put together. So it's the only organization that is signed with banks, bank-based community benefit agreements. Okay. Now, bank-based community benefit agreements are just that. With America's banking sector is the creators of wealth, right? So they have the ability under the Federal Reserve System to create wealth in this country. Yeah, all right. They Some $5 trillion worth of wealth has been created under the Obama administration. About $4.7 trillion in new Federal Reserve debt has been created during the past 8 years of the Obama administration. So that program, quantitative easing, has ended. Okay, but for those of you who were lucky enough to be beneficiaries of it, if you wanted to know where that stimulus program money came through quantitative easings, where the your local bank created money that the Federal Reserve bought. Okay, the debt. Okay, that was created, and that money went into the circulation. I mean, at one point, President Obama was authorizing the creation of $85 billion a month in new debt to save America. I mean, that was his and John McCain's mandate by President Bush to save the economy. So he did do that. But now that authority has been handed over to the current administration. And so the current administration has put into place uh, something that moves, again, $5 trillion. Okay, in the current administration. So we had this conference, the Just Economy Conference, which was the national event for community, policy, government, and business leaders who work for fairness in banking, housing, and business, all coming together to create a just economy. Now, so my organization, Friends of the African Union, our delegation went to the conference. What we were pointing out is that there's this new program that was put in that allowed unlimited investment called opportunity zones. Okay, so in December that of last year, when they passed the tax bill, and it was Tax and Jobs Act, in that was a program called opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are a program that allows corporations, funds, anybody who's in America that has created a capital gains. Okay. And so normally the capital gains would be taxed at one rate, but if you invest that capital gains and it's invested in an opportunity zone in one of over 10,000 census tracts across America that are designated out of the new market tax credits or areas that are of poverty or allied census tracts, then you got a lower tax rate. Okay. And so now unlimited amount of those capital gains can be invested in those areas. Now, from our reading, that there's two straight sources of that. That is the domestic capital gains that's inherent in the stock market and other capital gains that are domestic in nature, which is about $2.2 trillion worth. And then there's overseas profits, which, based on our reading of the law, can be classified as overseas profits at $2.8 trillion that can be repatriated at a reduced cost under the tax bill that was passed in December. So that's how we come up with the $5 trillion. Okay, that's a possibility that can be invested. Now you have to create the instruments for them to be invested. So at the Just Economy Conference, like I said, the best practitioners from over 600 organizations sent over 1,000 representatives. And so, just in that, we had easily over 20,000 years of experience at that conference that came together to talk about what is the best way to create a just economy. So our petri dish has always been Cincinnati. Okay. The reason we chose Cincinnati is, and the reason that FAU did a reverse merger with the Cincinnati Empowerment Corporation and is that Cincinnati holds, an ARC estimate, about 4% of America's wealth. You have to understand, see, they didn't teach us about Cincinnati, from up north. Okay. I came from greater Cleveland to Cincinnati. So in 96, they didn't, I came here, I didn't know Cincinnati. I didn't know the Cincinnati Business Committee that has run this town to where it is now. And it was an outgrowth of the 25 leading corporations. I didn't know DCI and later 3CDC and Uptown Consortium, which are their children. I didn't know the leadership of this town in the African American community and why it was where it was. Okay. But what I did know is that we had put together here in Cincinnati in the Cincinnati Empowerment Plan a award-winning pledge by corporate Cincinnati that included $500 million worth of bank commitments for the 9 communities, 50,000 poor people in Cincinnati and the region, including the Blue Ash Airport, which was owned by the city, just like the University of Cincinnati was owned at one time by the city. And that we had put together a winning combination to leave no one behind. I did not know my politics in Cincinnati at that time. I was naive. All right. Come 2000, they've now appointed a directorate of the Cincinnati Empowerment Corporation that by 2010 had received just $25 million worth of grant money from HUD, all right, but had not leveraged those agreements that we had in fact, okay, all right. In terms of those agreements that we had in fact, in written agreements, were enforceable by law. They were never enforced. The bonds, over $100 million in bonds, they were never issued. So it was the learning experience. Okay, coming 2018, when I went to this conference at NCRC and sat with and talked with and debated and discussed with these 20,000 year hours of experience. Okay. Uh, I came from this experience here in Cincinnati and the crucible of how to put together a just economy using a public private partnership. Now, the public private partnership is based on the idea that the public has equity in the corporate entity that is partnered with the public sector. So in this case, the public sector that it would be partnered with is the city of Cincinnati, the University of Cincinnati, Cincinnati State, Cincinnati Public Schools, and the county of Hamilton. Now, the reason the county of Hamilton and the city of Cincinnati are crucial to this is because they hold an untapped reservoir of capital, and that's the wastewater system and waterworks of the county, whose agreement that was created 50 years ago is up. That happened April 12th, 2018. So if you were to replace the wastewater system in Cincinnati currently, you'd have to spend about $16 billion to do so. But it's in the midst of an upgrade of a $3.29 billion upgrade. I think it's actually costing maybe $4 billion or more right now. My guys, as an engineer team member, okay, we're going to have more details for you next week. But the short of it is you now use that asset in the opportunity zones that allow the capital gain investment to create a working fund that fund then is investing in the people of the city who are owners of the asset. 40,000 households, 1,000 businesses. Okay, and out of those households, what you're doing is you're sending those households and the children of those households to school, okay, to either create businesses or create careers that support the long-term growth of this area. Okay, in terms of, and we know the long-term growth of this area and how it can be worked because we put together, or rather, it was put together in secret, the Amazon HQ2 proposal, which we lost. We didn't make the short list, but that work is there. And that, we were able to draw on that work. We're able to draw on the city on Plan Cincinnati, which is due for an update. So we have all this infrastructure that we can plan for the future, okay, and that we can use for the future to put together a just economy plan for Hamilton County that can serve as a model in over 337 other statistical metropolitan areas across America that unlocks the inherent value of the public sector that's owned, okay, by the private sector, and creating it so that we create intergenerational wealth by ownership of the public sector. Okay, that goes back to the fundamental creation of America when the public sector, okay, supported the intergenerational wealth of the slave owners and their beneficiaries. Because don't remember, slavery wasn't just in the South, it was in the North also, who benefited from the system up until the Great Civil War, our Second Civil War, okay, from 18 in the 1800s, that ended in 1865, and then in 1868 when we became citizens. It's time that we come together to create a just economy, and we can do that here in Cincinnati. My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm with Friends of the African Union. I'm the chairman. You can reach me at FAU Chairman at friendsoftheafricanunion.com. You can call me at 513-620-9887. I thank you for your time, and we'll be back for May 25th.
Right.
Okay. So, hey, Ed. Okay. Uh, we're ready to. I was over in Indianapolis to put together the chapter in Indianapolis. I want to talk to you about how we implement the opportunity zones in Indianapolis using a combination of your formula for and the Daniels IDIQ. Okay, I'll write you for updates. Okay, but looking forward to working with you there. Uh, for people who don't know, I'm talking about is Ed Morrison. He has been there and has done that. So we're going to take the second segment, which is talking about the United Nations. And you could take that first part that you had, the Friends of the African Union, and then fade into the second slide.
Okay.
All right, and then we'll start off of that. So what we're doing, the basis for what we're doing is the United Nations Universal Periodic Review. Okay, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so the 16 goals, but then you had the 17th, which is partnerships. Okay. In our case, we're creating public private partnerships. Public private partnerships is key that it's not just corporate public private partnerships, but it's also we're empowering the individual. And so we're doing that empowerment of the individual, yeah, okay, based on whenever you're ready. The reason I'm laughing, folks, is that a couple weeks ago I came in and the computer for the digital editor for the public broadcast portion of this died. The whole computer died. And now the brand new computer.
Oh,
They need to get you a fan for back there. You, oh, is it a matter of a reboot?
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now.
Oh, okay. I don't like to hear to say I'm trying to do.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm rebooting, but we got to just go ahead and
Oh, okay. So let me put this statement into the record from NCRC. Uh, Dear friends and colleagues, over the last year, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition and our members, such as Friends of the African Union, has outstanding success in creating economic opportunity for low and moderate income communities and communities of color. Nationally, we secured $62.6 billion in community benefit agreements, a victory that will help thousands of low and moderate income individuals become homeowners, start small businesses, and access fair banking services. Together, we are showing the power of grassroots community groups and the Community Reinvestment Act to create a just economy. This achievement is just one example of the work we and our 600 members and allies do every day to ensure the financial services needs of average Americans. The National Community Reinvestment Coalition advocates for policies that promote economic fairness and carries out the research and analysis that backs up these policies. We work to uphold fair housing, lending, and consumer protection laws. We offer training for business development and housing counseling, as well as provide housing counseling directly to homeowners. Through our growth initiative, NCRC, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, connects individuals and families with the job training and housing opportunities they need to build wealth. NCRC works hard to be the voice of economic justice in our nation's capital. In 2017, we look forward to continuing our successes and expanding wealth building opportunities in communities across the nation. Now, again, this was our 2016 annual report. Okay. We stand for working Americans in the belief that everyone deserves equal and fair access to equal opportunities, and we welcome you to stand with us. Okay. Uh, in 2018, when we had the Just Economy Conference, April 9th through the 11th, one of the speakers, okay, was Cory Booker, who, although he did not vote for the Jobs and Tax Act, was instrumental in bipartisan support for the Opportunity Zone, okay, legislation that's in there that we have to take advantage of. If we don't take advantage of, then it's a move that will harm over 10,000 census tracts in currently millions of people. And I'll cover that in a bit. Okay. My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union. If you want to write me, FAU Chairman at friendsoftheafricanunion.com. Thank you. So we're all the way going live for low network. What? So did it boot right? So video. Okay. Okay. Well, that need to move to a fault tolerant computer. Okay. All right. So we're going to end this stream here.